What's going on, casters? Dylan from Pandito Gaming here, and I am so excited to make this video today. This is exactly the kind of video that I had in mind when I was envisioning when I started this channel, that I wanted to talk to people about, share my thoughts, get other people's opinions. So strap in. This is probably going to be a long one because today we're going to be reviewing the upcoming Elestrals Shattered Stars Ethereal set. And I'm going to be talking to you and giving you my opinion on whether or not you should be opening these packs and what kind of return you're looking for when you're opening these packs. Now, before we get into the real content here, I need to call out this is not financial advice. I am simply sharing with you the data that I'm looking at, my opinions on this set, and what I'm going to use to decide whether or not I want to invest money into this, whether I want to open the packs. It is totally up to you to take that data and form your own opinions. So, now that that's out of the way, we can go ahead and jump in. So this set, as you all probably know, was slated to come out this week, really, in the next couple days. But it was delayed due to some production issues. They found some issues in card quality. I think it's great that they decided to pause and delay on releasing it because we've had sets before that have had bad quality. That leads to us having cards that are worth a lot less or looking terrible. Some things have had scratches and chips and things. So I'm glad that they're taking the time to kind of set aside to make sure that the print quality is good. Hopefully this means that we get the full value, we get the full quality of the cards, similar to those mid Shattered Stars 2 sets, and especially some of the earlier Shattered Stars where the quality was really high and you could expect near mint plus cards, get good grading back on every pack that you opened. So with that, the rough schedule for this video, I'm going to go through and explain the different types of cards, how I think that relates to previous Shattered Stars sets, what to expect as far as pricing out of the gate versus in the middle term versus if you hold it for a longer period of time and are willing to sit on it more as an investment. After I go through each of the different types of cards and how they work, I'm going to show you some of the examples from the past sets. I'm going to go through the actual numbers and show this is what I think the expected value of each pack and each Ascended Caster kit is going to provide. And then I'll give you my recommendation and explain what my plan is when it comes to this set and how I'm going to approach it. So without further ado, let's actually get into the cards themselves. Generally speaking, you can break sets down in Shattered Stars between the spirits, the commons, the rares, and the stellars. And that's more or less how I'm going to break this down. Ethereal's adding a new category of things called box toppers, which are going to be in every Ascended Caster kit. We'll look into those as well. But for the most part, that's more or less how I'm going to break things down. When you look at this set, the spirits are divided into a common and an uncommon variant. That is very important to know. Historically, we've run into that before too, where there was a common and an uncommon variant. From what we've heard, we don't have exact information on this yet. The spirit slot will always be a spirit, and it can either be the common or the rare. So we can either get one of these felt arts, which were in the back half of Shattered Stars 2, or we can get one of these ethereal full art textured spirits, which obviously will be significantly higher value. We don't know what the ratio is going to be between these. These could be every other is a felt or a full art. It could be 25% chance for a full art. Maybe that information has changed. If it has, I'll show you how I'm going to account for that once I know what the actual pull rates are. But the thing to keep in mind here is when looking at this and figuring out, is this as good as the old sets or not? One thing that was very noticeable between the Shattered Stars 2 front half and back half was that the value of the stained glass cards was significantly higher and very much more consistent than the value of the felt cards. If you look, for example, at the Zaptor, which was one of the first ones that was released, you can see over the course of time, just on TCG Player, there's been 270 copies sold. Now, it's been out for a little over a year, so this number may or may not be exact, whatever. I can tell you from my experience, I have sold over 100, somewhere around 150 of each spirit for $1 to $1.50. Now you can see that some people will still have it posted lower. Generally speaking, these will come and go here and there. But for the most part, people are willing to pay $1.50, and especially for Shattered Stars 1, over $2 for just the common version of this card. And the hollows will fetch, somewhere between like 7 and 10 if you're willing to hold out. Obviously, it's a lot lower if you try to sell right when it comes out, after the initial push of everybody wanting their initial copies. So I do think, to a significant extent, looking at the felt, which a lot of these felts are actually reprints, which is going to be a significant hit to their value. If you look at the list, 4 of these felts have already come out, or actually 5, I think. Yeah, 5 of these felts have already come out. Those are going to have significantly, drastically reduced value. They probably won't even sell at all. Now, you'll notice that these are marked as hollow variants. So it'll be really interesting to see if this is different. I'm assuming it's going to be different from the reverse hollows that were already there, but this art is already out in the world. A lot of people have already collected this. There's a chance people will want these, but if you look, for example, at the Zaptor and we change that to the reverse hollow version, none of these have ever sold. There's never been a copy of this that's sold on TCG Player. I've seen a few sales on the marketplace around a couple dollars, but for the most part, these just don't sell at all. Now, that could change. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, people start buying them. They're willing to spend $1, $2, $3 on it. We do see some sales of the reverse hollows from main sets. So, and especially since these are felt arts, those go in and out of style. I do think there's a chance here for value, but I think when we're talking about the spirit value in Ethereal, you're really looking almost exclusively at the full arts. Now, Zaptor was already printed. I'm very upset because Zaptor is my first #1 spirit, right? That's my favorite. I collected so many of these. I do think, depending on the print quality here, the error non-textured version of the Zaptors that came in Shattered Stars 3, those could be very unique and extremely rare. As it was, roughly 1 out of every 5, 1 out of every 4 Zaptors were misprinted to where they didn't have texture. Those could be a good long-term play. People might look to pick those up because it's a unique variant of this card that looks really cool. So I have my eye on that. I'm not letting any of my error print go unless I'm selling it for at least $10 right now. I think long term, each of these probably has a value similar to the hollow Shattered Stars 1 cards, maybe even more. So long term, I'm looking at a value for these between like $7 and $15. Probably once everybody sells out of all the people just trying to get rid of them, you'll probably be looking consistently over $10 for these, would be my guess. So I think there's really good value here, and especially considering that's one of the slots, depending on what the pull rate is, that could be really useful for people long term looking to hold this. So next, what I will look at is the next 5 slots in the pack. We don't know the order of these, but from what we can tell, you're gonna have 1 spirit, 5 commons, and a rare in each one. In general, outside of the spirits, commons have almost never had any value. I always tell people, if you're thinking about what value am I getting out of the commons in Shattered Stars packs, just assume 0. Yes, some of these will eventually sell for a quarter to 50 cents, and some of the Shattered Stars ones are even selling for almost $1. I've probably sold 40 Hydrakes from Shattered Stars 1 in the last 2 months at 75 cents each. They do sell, but that's almost always based on playability. There are some, some of the older ones where people just really like the art and they'll buy a whole bunch of them. But I'd say 80% of all these commons will never sell. And especially if you buy in bulk, you'll be holding them for a very long time, hoping that Elestrals pops off. I do hold a lot of mine, but I actually don't even keep. I probably keep about 100 of each common, and the rest of them I get rid of. So I usually don't account for the commons when dealing with Shattered Stars. So we're just going to essentially call that a net 0. So now getting into the bigger cards, I kind of group the rares in this set between the full art Elestrals, the full art runes, the stained glass divines, and for some reason these are all the way down here, the clay arts. So going through each of these, kind of analyzing what I think they'll be worth, talking about the full arts for the different Elestrals. You can see those are kind of inconsistent in prices. So Imperial is an example of one of the most recent ones. It does not sell very well. There's no sales on TCG Player for this card. I have sold several on eBay and I've sold a few in the marketplace. I do think these cards consistently long term will gain value, but there are some that just clearly are nobody's interested in right now. The Echo Links, for example, is a card that people do buy. This card consistently has been selling for $5 to $10 on TCG Player, on eBay. There's some other good ones that'll sell consistently too. The Cyprong, really just the whole set for Virgo was just better than most of the other ones, just as far as the Elestrals go and how easy it is to sell. So it will be inconsistent on how good these are. Some will sell $5 to $10 long term. Some of them will never sell for years, and then you'll get lucky to sell them for 3 to 5 after a certain point. I would say these probably will average somewhere around like $5 in total once everything's said and done. So now getting into the full art runes, how valuable will these be? This one's really hard because Shattered Stars has never had this before. Full art runes have been restricted just to the mainline sets. All of the older runes that, we've had the clay arts, but the older runes in Shattered Stars were just the regular card, just a holo version. And these did not go over well. For the super playable cards, you could usually sell the holo version for whatever the playable card was, plus a few dollars. I would say Gorgons and Poison Tipped Arrow were probably the best sellers, where at some points PTAs were selling for $10 and Gorgons were selling for 7 or 8. But that market really dried up a lot when full art runes came out, and those started selling like crazy from the mainline sets. The rarity is way different. I'll show you guys later what rarity I think they'll be, but I don't think this is a good place. For what it's worth, these are actually picking up in sales. A lot of these are starting to sell for $3 to $5 consistently, and the supply is drying up. So even these eventually 2.5 years later are starting to sell. So I do think there's a lot of potential in the runes. The question is just how playable are the cards going to be? Eventually, if they're not playable, they will start to sell. But, I think you'll flex somewhere between a huge range, maybe even $2 to $15. If something's really playable, it could easily sell for 15 or 20 if it starts selling out. Talking about the clay arts, we'll get there in a second. But there's some clay arts that were selling for $15 to $20 consistently for a while before we got into that. Before people started actually buying and opening the product more. So the next thing that we look at here is the stained glass divines. So there's 4 different stained glass divines. These are the 4 elements that we've been missing. Again, playability is a huge factor in this, and I'm not going to speak to how playable each of these will be because the metagame changes. It's constantly evolving. But on average, I would say that these cards will hold up their value after a while. The stained glass Elestrals have been doing pretty well overall. The stained glass divines that exist so far have not been doing that great, price wise, at least. For price wise, Poseidon's definitely the worst one. It'll sell for $1, $2 pretty consistently. But you'll notice that the sales data is pretty solid for it. It sold 70 copies on TCG Player, which compared to a lot of other cards, like that's pretty good. That's a good chunk of the total supply of Poseidons out there. I think people are massively undervaluing these stained glass cards. I think at a minimum, $5 would be my long-term target for these. You can see on Zeus, we've already hit that point. This card is consistently selling, and it just recently got posted. People just haven't been posting this as often. You don't see people selling out on this and just trying to get the minimum value for it as fast as they can. And because of that, you notice that this card is consistently selling at $3 to $5 pretty easily. So I think the same thing will be true. You'll have to let things flush out of the market, but I see these stained glass cards really hitting that $3 to $5 mark pretty easily after about a year. The last part of the rares, like I said, is the clay arts. And the clay arts have very consistently been worth a good amount of money. Now, a lot of this is also dependent on playability. But the best clay art so far has been the Dionysus's Madness card. You see this is kind of fluctuating in price as people, open and have availability for it, but you can see people are willing to pay, $10 for this variant pretty consistently. And 86 copies sold in less than a year isn't something to shake at, right? Like this is a pretty valuable card, and I think the clay art is very unique. It's very cool. Other cards like Hestia's Hearth are selling around the $3 mark. But again, look at the sales volume. There's been 80 of them sold in the last year just on TCG Player. That's really good burn through considering the price, and you can see already like under $5. We're not looking at single digit numbers of cards here. I think this card, even though it's not as playable, it will start selling out. And even Artemis's Deadshot, this card, there's one listing here of 6 copies at $1.50, and then it jumps up to $5. These cards are interesting and popular. The art is really cool. I think as we get more collectors in, this is going to be a really good, really big theme that people are going to jump in on. I'm really interested to see if they ever make Elestrals themselves into clay art, how that will work and perform. But these I think are really good. I think they'll perform long term. I think the same thing is true about these Shattered Stars 3. I don't care, or sorry, for Ethereal. I don't care whether they're playable or not. If they're playable, great. That adds value. I think even if they're not playable, you're looking at a minimum of $5 to $10 of a long term value. I would think just based on how popular they already are and how well they're selling. Even though the market's still flush, there's still plenty of people who have the existing ones. So the last piece in here that we can talk about, the box toppers. So the box toppers are interesting because historically, these constellation cards have not gone well. You can see the Celestlio card. It barely has ever sold for more than $3. Like it has consistently been around a $1 or $2 card. It was really popular when it first came out, but it just does not sell very well. And this is one of the best selling constellation cards. And I think a lot of the reason why it's selling so much is because it's so easy and cheap to pick up. If you look at the Aphoros, very similar. It is not worth very much. I will say both of these cards are also starting to run out of stock. You see, there's only 4 more copies before we jump up to $3, and then the next listing, it just jumps from there. I do think even these basic constellation cards that nobody really seems to want, I think they will be worth $5 in the near future. Over the next year, as supply dries up, I think a lot of these constellations will go up. And I think what's very interesting is that while these box toppers are in every single Ascended Caster kit, the old rate for constellations were the rarity rate, which most of the constellations were a 1 out of 6, a 1 out of 7 rare spot. So 1 out of every 6 or 7 packs, you would hit one of the constellation cards. These, by definition, will be 1 out of 10. And to get a specific one, they will be 1 out of 40. So not only are these different looking, they actually have the Elestrals. I think it looks way cooler. It's way more interesting in my personal opinion. So the cards are better. There's less of them. And there's a chance that you hit it within hitting a constellation. I think because of that, these will sell much better. They'll be much more popular. I also think they just chose much better Elestrals on these than some of the other ones. Lakagon, Hydrate, Glaciursa, those are all really popular Elestrals. I think that these cards could easily be selling out of the gate $5 plus, even though they come in every single Ascended Casters kit. It'll be interesting to see how people approach that. I do think early on, these will come out and people will just think they're throwaway, throw them up for $1 or $2, and there might be a good buying opportunity early because I don't think people will realize how rare, how few of these cards there actually are out there. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So now that we've all reviewed all of the basic cards, I'm not going to go in depth on how good or bad the Stellars are. It is true that popularity and playability of these reverse Stellars has a significant impact on their price. I, in general, from Shattered Stars, say the average price of a reverse seller should be around $50. And some of these will be worth more because there's more playable or more popular cards. I think the Toxic Swarm is a card that sells very consistently on a regular basis. That's probably going to be worth more than 50. Some of these other ones may or may not be as popular, may not be worth more. It will ebb and flow with playability and favorites of cards. But in general, you can consistently get $40 to $60 for most reverse sellers, and that's kind of where I price those when I'm looking at how much money can I make opening packs, or is it worth opening packs. As far as the serialized sellers go, again, I'm not going to speak to playability or anything like that. I will say every X out of 99 Divine has stayed consistent at $300. I've never seen more consistent sellers outside of Kickstarter where you post one of these at $300 or $275 or $325, someone's going to buy it. I'm very confident that those will hold their value really well. Dougie is a cute card. It's one that everybody was looking forward to in the last set before it got pushed out of it. I think that will be popular as well. I already talked to the constellations. I think this is an amazingly good concept. I hope that these are textured because that would be super cool. I would love to get our first textured Elestrals cards in Shattered Stars. I don't know if they're going to do that or not. As far as the X of 10s, those are so rare. It's hard to really say which ones will be worth more or less. I do think they probably chose some of the least popular Elestrals that they've had in X of 10s. You know, Chilliwaddle is not one that sells very well from Sunstrike. Cyclovenom does not sell very well from Sunstrike. So I don't know how much that's going to affect their prices. I don't think these will go under $800, even if nobody likes these Elestrals. I do think some people do like these Elestrals, right? People will relate to it. Some people will just be looking for one of the cheaper X of 10s to say they have one. I do think these will easily sell for $800. Especially early, maybe you end up getting 1,200, or maybe a good trade from A Drive for some prototype stuff that you can turn into something else. Worst case scenario, right? So I think overall, this Shattered Stars has an elevated serialized card list. There's nothing amazing in the X of 10, but I love the X out of 25s, and the Divines and X out of 99s are great. They will definitely keep the set up. So the final thing that I want to do is go through all the things that I talked about and put what I think are reasonable values on things. Now, there are two main flex points here that I need to call out to begin with. The first is how many packs are going to be printed. We don't know for sure how many packs are going to be printed, and more than likely that data will never be shared with anyone. I'll share in another video some of the information I have on Shattered Stars 1 and 2, back when we actually had ways to find out the exact print runs. We don't have those anymore. I can tell you that consistently from Shattered Stars, print runs were somewhere in the area of 10 to 16, $17,000 or 17,000 packs per chapter. So each one that we had, there was somewhere between, like, let's call it, 3,300 bundles to 6,000 bundles. That changed over time. They did not keep the print run the exact same for every single chapter. I have seen that they changed mid Shattered Stars 1 and Shattered Stars 2. So they changed the amount of packs they were printing to adjust, I'm assuming, to the demand between things. This is essentially, if you look at it, the combination of 4 different sets at once. Now they added Dougie, but they have, four X out of 99s. They have four X out of 25s. They have four X out of 10s, and they have 8 reverse stellars. Looking at that, it makes me think they're thinking of this as 4 separate Shattered Stars chapters. And if that's, and I keep saying chapters, it's not chapters, it's months. So if we consider this to be 4 months, and I said, somewhere between 12 and 17, we're just going to call it 15,000 packs. And we're just going to say that they're going to take 4 of those. So just as a starting point, I threw 60,000 out there. In theory, I could adjust that to 80,000, and that adjusts all of our numbers. For now, I'm going to leave it at 60,000, and we can kind of, I'll show what adjustments to that change here. The other numbers that we don't know at all is the odds of a felt art spirit versus a full art spirit. We are making assumptions that they're being consistent where all rares have an equal chance. There are 4 of each of our different categories. There's 4 full art Elestrals, 4 clay arts, 4 full art runes, and 4 stained glass divines. So, and historically, those are printed equally on every sheet, so there's an equal chance of those. And obviously, X out of 99, X out of 25, X out of 10, if we know how many packs there are, we know what the chances of those are. The reverse stellars, I'm assuming, are going to keep the same rate. In Shattered Stars 2, I opened well over 2,000 packs, and I feel confident in saying the rate of reverse stellars is roughly 4x the rate of X out of 99s. Now, maybe that gets adjusted and it's 5 times or 6 times, but for now we're going to say it's roughly 4 times as many of them than X out of 99s for a single X out of 99. So going through that, you can see if these numbers are accurate, we're looking at, for each individual full art, if it's a 50-50 chance to get each kind of spirit, there will be somewhere around 4,000 of each spirit. So there will be 4,000 full art by Pyros, 4,000 full art Flare Mines. Now, I personally think that this is probably going to be a 75-25 split, and you'll get a full art 1 out of every 4 packs. We don't know, though. We'll find out when we get more information, or when we get the cards in our hands and we can try it out. I'll show you what each variant means. That is a significant flexing point within this data, though. As you saw, the numbers down here are changing a lot when that happens. So I'm starting walking through the investing side. So assume you're going to hold steady on prices and you're willing to wait 2 to 3 years to sell these things. So assuming that is your conditions, these are the kinds of prices that I'm expecting for this. So like I said, I'm not going to count anything for the felt arts. It would be great if we could get $1 or $2 for each of these. That does significantly change the numbers as well. So depending on how those play out, that could be in your favor long term. And like I said, we're probably looking at that $10 mark for each of the different spirits. I do think Zaptor will not sell as well because there's already a version of that exact card. So maybe this gets changed, but maybe the full art sell for 12 or 15 at some point, because I do think they are better than Shattered Stars 1 rares. And a lot of the Shattered Stars 1 rares are starting to move into the $12, $15 range at this point. As far as the full art Elestrals, like I said, I think it's gonna vary greatly based on playability, but I think an average of $5 for those long term makes a lot of sense. Clay arts, I do think, are more unique and more interesting, so I think those will have a better market long term. The stained glass divines, this could go either way. The stained glass Elestrals are going up a lot. Pantera just recently broke $10 consistently. The Viserys has been selling really well. I think these could go up to $10 at some point, but being conservative, I think 5 is probably reasonable. And the full art runes, I think, are a huge wild card. Those could go up way more if people respond well to them. People are willing to spend $50, $60, $70 for some of the playable full art runes in mainline sets. If you get a playable full art rune in Shattered Stars, who's to say, if there's only 5,000 copies of each of those, who's to say that, hey, I'd be willing to pay $20, $15 that could go up a lot, depending on how playability and how people respond to them. But conservatively, I threw about $5 on there. For the box topper, like I said, I don't think people are going to realize how rare these are, which this number is actually wrong, because this is one per Ascended Caster kit. So there's only 1,500 in this scenario of each individual box topper. If you get one per 10 packs, there's only 6,000 Ascended Caster kits in this hypothetical. We're looking at only 1,500 copies of this card. That's not a lot. That is only 5 times rarer or more common than a reverse stellar in that workflow. I don't think people are appreciating how significant the rarity of these box toppers will be, and I do think we're going to be in a world where these will hit $5 at some point, especially with as cool as they are, how much better they are than the basic constellation rares, and with the basic constellation rares starting to push up into that $2, $3, $4 range. I'm very confident that $5 for these long term makes sense. For the reverse stellars, like I said, I usually put an average of $50 for those. That could flex up or down based on playability. But even those, you'll see, because there's more X out of 99 stellars, unless they increase the number of or the rate of reverse stellars from Shattered Stars 2, we're actually going to have significantly fewer reverse stellars than we did in the normal versions, because the ratios are different. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. X out of 99s, obviously, those are static numbers. It doesn't really matter. There's exactly 99, 25, and 10 of each of those. So that's just based on how many cards there are. So the odds are really the big question mark, and those change a lot based on how many expected packs we have. With these base numbers in place, which again, I was being very conservative on some of the expected values. I'm being very generous on the odds for the spirits. I'm being very generous. Well, I don't really know what to expect from the Ascended Caster kits. So I'm going to put in what I think are more realistic numbers when I'm done with this. So just with these numbers, you can see your expected pack value is before fees over $15. Considering MSRP is $65 per Ascended Caster kit, that's $6.50 a pack. You're making a ton of money. Yeah, in this scenario, before fees of selling, you could be almost tripling your money from buying these Ascended Caster kits and opening them, which I will be making a Shattered Stars video soon. It's very consistent with how Shattered Stars has been. If you're willing to open Shattered Stars and sit on the cards, you will make a lot of money, because people consistently undervalue how much these are worth and how much people are willing to pay, and there's a great market for them. Now, putting more realistic numbers into this, I do not think that it will be a 1-to-1 ratio. I think it will be a 1 out of every 4. It could be even worse. Maybe it's a 1 out of every 6. I will show both just so you can see. That dramatically reduces the pack values here. Again, I do think some of these numbers are a little depressed and they could go a lot higher. For now, we'll leave it at 75-25. I think that's realistic. I do think the 60,000 is probably close, especially with how they reduced the print run for Sunstrike significantly. I think it's going to be very similar here. And the fact that they were limiting everybody to one case, the fact that they sold out as quick as they did, the fact that the Elestrals wholesale site sold out as fast as it did, I would not be surprised if this is their total print run. But, we can play around with this number. Let's say they do a Frostfall and they double it. If that's the case, you're still looking at a positive EV, even with the worst numbers. I'm not really concerned. I don't think they did that. I don't think they doubled the run from the last Shattered Stars run, especially seeing how poorly the back half of Shattered Stars 2 sold. There are still sets like Gemini, for example, that have over 2,000 bundles in stock. They haven't sold at all. So I don't think they're going to have gone crazy. Maybe they bumped it up and threw it up to I don't know, like 75,000 or 80,000, but you're still looking at an amazing EV almost doubling up on what you're putting into it consistently. And with luck, you could even go a little bit higher. And I think, like I said, a lot of these cards, depending on playability, they could go bigger than that. So for now, we'll just leave it at the 60,000, which is what I originally estimated. I think that's a safe number. Maybe they bumped it a little bit more, but I'm pretty skeptical that they pushed it too much. So this is the investment route, right? You are willing to sit on it and wait. I think if you do that, there is a very good chance you double your money just from opening these packs. I've done it before. I've done it even more than this. I think some of these things I'm dramatically undervaluing here. I'm kind of going conservative with a lot of these prices. The Stellars, these are just kind of the consistent prices we see for things that can go higher or lower. But from an investment standpoint, 100% sign off on opening Ethereal. I am going to do it myself. This is part of my own plan, and I'll get more into that in a bit. But let's say you're the kind of person who is just opening packs because you want to open packs. You are looking for cards and you want to know, hey, if I search for my cards, is it worth it? Should I search for my cards versus buying them? Or if you want to try to sell fast and you're a business and you're trying to buy out inventory from your distribution to get your spend up, and you're like, hey, it's hard to sell this stuff sealed for MSRP. Am I able to open it and sell it better? And looking at the numbers here, I can tell you probably. Um, Again, when you sell early, you're going to be fighting with other people. Things are going to sell for a lot less. So here I updated the numbers a bit and said, hey, full arts are probably going to not go for $10. Full art spirits, you can probably sell fast at 5. Um, so updating this here as well to account for the 75-25 split. Your rares are going to be worth a lot less. The full art Elestrals a bunch of them won't sell at all. A bunch of the playable ones will sell for the $5 range. The clay arts, again, a bunch of them just won't sell. You can drop it to $1 and wait 3 months, and eventually somebody will buy it. But you'll have some that sell well and some that don't. Same thing for the runes and the divines. I think these prices are very conservative. I think some of these will sell for more. Will there be a rune that sells for $10 right out the gate? Probably. So some of these I'm intentionally pushing these down. Box toppers, I think people will dramatically undervalue these out of the gate. They won't appreciate how many of them there are. And because of that, I think you will run into the situation where people will be selling this really low. If there's anything in here that I would say, please don't sell early, it's probably the box toppers. I think they will be worth more than people expect them to be. Reverse sellers, usually you can get rid of those for $30. Sometimes you're going to sit on dead money. And then 99s, 25s, and 10s, they'll take a while to sell, but if you post them as low as possible, they'll eventually sell. So because of that, I think you're still looking at a near you're selling these essentially at MSRP if you were to just sell the sealed product. So if you're buying from distribution and you're paying less than $40 per ascended caster kit and you just want to flip money fast and you're not able to sell the sealed, you should open it. You should sell the cards inside of it because they will sell. I don't know if the sealed investment is going to be worth it or not. I'm actually planning on making another video here in the near future around the history of sealed investment in Elestrals and whether I think it's going to change with the most recent changes to Sunstrike and the future of Shattered Stars in that space. But that's not for now. We're just looking of, should I open this? And my final verdict on this, for those of you who skipped ahead to the end, what do I plan on doing? What do I recommend other people do? Taking in their own information and recognizing it's their own choice. I personally think this will be a great set to open. Whether you are just trying to find cards for yourself, I think it is so close on the expected value. Even if you're trying to get this out as fast as possible and sell it off instantly, I think you have a great chance of breaking even or making money compared to buying it. You could even make money on top of getting the cards that you want. I think it is a great opportunity, and especially if you can get the boxes close to distribution or under MSRP, if you can get it around $50, I think it is a net positive EV to open Shattered Stars, like it has been since Shattered Stars 1. So strong recommendation. My plan is to try to find as many of these Ascended Caster kits as I can, preferably around the $40 to $45 range. I got two cases so far, one through Elestrals wholesale, one that I got for free using obols from all the purchases that I've made. But ultimately, if you can get your hands on these, open them. You'll make money. You'll enjoy what you're doing. You'll get the cards that you're looking for. I hope to personally get upwards of 50 to 100 of these if they're just sitting out on people's websites well under MSRP. I'm going to buy them up. I think it's a great investment from my perspective, from my plan. I expect to do it. I think this is one of the best Shattered Star sets that there's been. I still think Shattered Stars 1 won't ever be beaten, but I think this is stronger than most of the Shattered Stars 2 sets, even with the changes that they've been making to the spirits, because the box topper edition is significantly better. The arts on all the cards have been dramatically elevated. I think there will be significantly fewer cards that you just cannot sell, that no one ever wants, and I think that's going to have a ton of value long term. So, for those of you all who stuck around all the way to the end, let me know, what's your plans? What do you want to do? Leave a comment. Show me a flying money emoji to let me know that you made it this far, that you're here with me. I appreciate you sticking around. Like the video if you learned anything, or if you like any of the things I have to say. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I look forward to talking more. I get very excited on these set releases to talk about this stuff. So thank you once again, and we're out.